wasn't love, then it wasn't love. Are we really done? Is there more to come? If it's not enough, then it's not enough. If it wasn't us, then it wasn't us. There's something about when you know it, you know it. Don't let it be gone in a moment, a moment. Don't try to be cool, baby, show it, show it. Just own it, own it. We are calling. We're not running, yeah. We are calling. We're not running, yeah. We're golden. When you're coming back from a heart attack, all that history, all that chemistry, from the what could be to the what are we, it's so deep. Something about you know it, you know it. Don't let it be gone in a moment, a moment. Don't try to be cool, baby, show it, show it. Just own it, own it. We are golden. We're not running, yeah. We are golden. We're not running, yeah. Woo! Again and again and again and again. Woo! Again and again and again and again. Don't get broken before it gets beautiful. 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 We're so beautiful. We are golden. We're not running, yeah. We are golden. We're not running, yeah. Woo! Again and again and again and again. Woo! Again and again and again and again. We're golden. I say this all the time, and it breaks this heart of mine when I can't decide. Does it make sense to discover the pain inside another than turn to ice? If you don't believe in something besides fear of discomfort, can anybody know what is wrong or right? If you take all of my love and I take all of your love, it's the trip that gets us higher into the night. And we go Dayglow. We can't say no, we just go Dayglow. We can't say no. Oh, now the day goes by that I don't know. We were Dayglow. I want to feel your darkness and hold you in the farthest place that you run. Your father and your mother don't have to be the lover that you become. It's all a bunch of bullshit. There's not another culprit that's ever gonna hurt worse than honesty. So take all of my love, I'll take all of your love. It's the trip that gets us higher into worry about you all the time. I know we didn't hold the light, but you are always on my mind. Yeah, baby. They'll tell you it'll be alright. They'll tell you it'll all be fine. But we've done all those lonesome lines. Drag this haunted and be wrong. Say the long goodbye. Let's relive the light. It doesn't have to be over. Say the long goodbye. Save me for a while. It doesn't have to be over. I keep chasing. I know I'm just a dream away, and I wish I found the words to say before our moment slipped away. Seems crazy, but looking back at all the pain, I'd bottle every drop of rain to be the way we were again. Drag this on it and be wrong. Say the long goodbye. Let's relive the light. It doesn't have to be over. Say the long goodbye. Save me for a while. I don't want it to be over. Just a little longer, catch a little fire. Nothing is forever. Don't believe in time. Stay home. Say the long goodbye. Let's relive the light. It doesn't have to be over. Stay home. Say the long goodbye. Save me for a while. I don't want it to be over. Drag this on it and be wrong. Drag this on and
Hello, friends. My name is Mac Wilson from Minnesota Public Radio, The Current, and I'm welcoming LP to the Current studio.
What's up?
Hello.
How's it going?
How are you today? You're in town playing at the
good.
Palace Theater tonight.
Yeah.
So the new record is out now called Love Lines. It's been a couple of years in the making, but like it feels like as we've welcomed artists back into the Current studio over the last couple of years, we say, oh, well, this is the one that you were working on during the COVID-19 pandemic, but you've put out a couple of records in that interim.
Was the one before that.
Right. So you've already got another one in there. So we're kind of past that talking point with it. So where was your headspace at? If the one before this was more tied in with the COVID era, where was your headspace compared to this new one?
Well, I mean, that one was, I would say that was, I thought it was almost done when we went into COVID. And then I had nothing else to do. So I started to try to beat some songs and add some songs. And I think that's why it's probably my longest record. Or not. I just don't put that many songs on record usually. But yeah, it was I got more very intricate with that one, I think. But this one felt, this was kind of a product of the pandemic in a way that, because it was like my pod, I had this, I broke up with my girlfriend, fiance at the time, and we, and then I just started kind of hanging out with all these different people, and getting close to them. Some of them were her friends that I just have realized that I was more compatible with, and because I'm always on tour, so I don't really get to hang that much. So when I was home, I just started hanging out with this group of musicians, and it was one of those it was kind of hang. We were mess around musically, but we didn't go in the studio. Then we went in the studio. We wrote a song, and it was an awesome experience. And another one, then another one, and then all of a sudden, boom! We were I was whisking us away to a house in the islands that's we made a studio, and this record came out of that, out of a couple of different destinations.
Which islands was this?
Cayman. Cayman Islands. I call it Cayman because Andrew. So it's Andrew Martin, Matt Pauling, producer, and Ashton Irwin, and it was the four of us doing this, and Andrew Martin is from Cayman Islands, and the people in Cayman call it Cayman, and so I do too now, and so we all went down there, and we just had this beautiful time, and it was our friendship was just getting so big and so beautiful, and all this came out of that, so that was cool.
Okay, so this studio in Cayman, as you said,
we made a studio. We made a studio.
So you made the studio. So this was not an instant I think of when Dire Straits made Brother in Arms and they went to Montserrat, where there's diagrams of how they set up the studio to get the absolute exact sound they wanted. Yeah. This was more about vibes in general, rather than
I did most of these vocals in this makeshift vocal booth that was mattresses. From one of the rooms, and we got a lot of dope sounds. We had a whole live room with drums. Andrew's pals from the island kind of hooked us up with gear and mics and drums for Ashton, and it was awesome. Yeah.
I'm thinking about listening to your voice on record and the efforts that you went through to capture that in the scenario like that. And during the first days of the pandemic, when we would record stuff from our own homes, and like literally throwing a blanket over my head, going down in my basement, I don't know, is the sound good enough on this? And then comparing that to the way that you're describing, it's kind of ballparks away from that, but and yet sort of the same
that's
idea.
The way to go. I mean, I think there's there's a lot to be said for the vibe, and also the excitement of singing a new song. That you capture, that you can't capture as well when you're very calculated later in the studio,
We are in the current studio with LP, and when you read through your biography and your catalog, there's a lot of big names that are in there. One of them that we've always got to ask here is about Dan Wilson.
Oh,
because he's from Minnesota originally, and a longtime friend. He's a very good friend of the current. Him. So how did it go with Dan Wilson?
It went great. I wrote the title track of Churches with him. Mm-hmm. I had 2 days with him, and I think the first day I was just in awe of him and him as a musician, him as a man. He was just a lovely guy and just so deep, and I was sitting at the foot of this giant awesome guy, and then I started to panic toward the end of the session. I was going to come up with something with this guy, so I don't want just to talk to him the whole time. And so then I had some stuff with Churches, and we started that, and
Yeah, I think we finished it the next day. I think we started something else, but we didn't finish it. But yeah, he's an amazing musician and producer.
In the songwriting and the songwriting work that you've done with other folks, then do you feel? It sounds like when you were working with Dan, you were like on the other side. You're looking up to him, having other musicians look up to you, like working with you in the studio. Did you feel that?
I felt like with him, I felt like, wow, this guy, because I knew he'd like had a big hit as a band, and then he was doing the production and writing thing, and I felt a little bit like that because I write for other people, and I was just like kind of just taking, notes from him, and just like kind of feeling like we both had some common stuff in our, like you're saying. And it was really cool because I like the idea of having different places in the musical scope of things. There's been times when I don't contribute like lyrics to something. I'm just doing melodies or, or just all lyrics, or it does, when I write for others. I do both for myself, but it's just like, it's interesting to like go into these places where you're like in a different title in a way. And I think he knows all about that.
In the songwriting work that you've been doing as far back as it goes, in this era of streaming, is there any instances of songs that have like unexpectedly taken off in your back catalog? You're like, where you get a check, you're like, wow, this song really took off. Are there any instances of those that have really surprised you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's what kept me going as a songwriter anyway, like I couldn't believe like the songs that were like around the world, like making income for me, that I was like, that I don't even remember writing, like, I mean, someone sent me a song the other day that I guess I wrote it with some big producer, and like Danger or something like that, and it was like very like Rihanna, Sia vibes. I totally didn't remember writing it, and I think I'm gonna like reproduce it and pitch it again, but yeah. Or pitch it finally. Sometimes things don't even get pitched. But I'm always surprised. Yeah, I have a song online that I did, I might do it a couple more times this tour. I do it stripped down with just my guitar player and my piano player. And it's a song, it's got like 25 million views on YouTube. Like one's that's like 12 million, one's like 11 million, and there's a bunch of ones that are hundreds of thousands or whatever. And I never released it. I don't even know who released it. If I told my manager, I said, I'm going to start doing it on tour. Do we know who's monetizing that? I don't think it's not on my page. I'm not sure, but yeah, I think it's like an old manager guy before my managers now, which has been a minute. It's been like over 10 years that I've had these managers. So it's like someone in my past, because I wrote that song in 2007 with like some huge songwriter, producer, Matthew Wilder, who did the first No Doubt record. Mm-hmm. Also was an artist himself with Ain't Nothing Gonna Break a Man's Stride.
Mm-hmm. He did Hercules, didn't he? Was that who I'm thinking of, that he did Disney's Hercules?
Maybe. I wouldn't put it past him. He's an incredible guy. But yeah, he so yeah, that song's just out, getting that many hits, like kind of just doing his thing, and I found that remarkable, like and cool, and makes me want to release a whole couple. I put out like 3 records of like songs that no one's ever heard, more than that, but ones that are worth hearing, maybe, I think.
Well, that's what Dan Wilson did when he went back into everything that he wrote with other people, and then he did the solo version of those. Well,
that's cool.
That was really cool. That came out a couple of years back. Well, for all we know, the performances that we recorded in the studio today, maybe that'll be one with 25 million hits at the current someday from LP.
We'll see.
Thank you again for stopping by today.
Thank you,
and best of luck with where the road leads you next, and we'll see you again soon.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Current is public media made possible thanks to member support.